Can you pull up the opening of my clip with Abby Phillips? And I want to set it up as follows. Notice that I don't bring up slavery. They do. Notice that all the things I'm citing, actually, only one thing I brought up was Benjamin Franklin that even references slaves. So when this woman says we're whitewashing slavery, I said that's not what he's attempting to do, with the intention of showing things that have nothing to do with slavery. Then it becomes a conversation about slavery, in which case I then turn around and say, you know, hey, not all white people are the devil. Only 2% of all white Americans own slaves. And yes, I appreciate it was like 25% in the South. That's because other states in the country had banned it as being morally reprehensible. So take a look at this real quick. We're going to set this whole thing up, and then I'm going to pass to you, and you can let it rip. Have at it. On me, on the situation, whatever you think.
He's gone into the Smithsonian. He's effectively now has some random person deciding what is appropriate for the Smithsonian to teach in terms of American history, things that don't offend parts of the MAGA base, right? So we're now literally reviewing parts of American history and parts of American culture to make sure it comports with dear leader and what the MAGA organization
Can we address
wants.
some of those things that are in there? Because have you looked at some of the things that are being reviewed?
Yeah, slavery was a bad thing that we could talk about.
Okay.
Like,
He's not whitewashing slavery.
So he's not?
He's not. No,
okay.
he's not. And you cannot tie imperialism and racism and slavery to just one race, which is pretty much what every single exhibit does. But let's talk about the fact that when you
anti-slavery,
let's talk about the fact that you get into all these other
slavery in
things.
America was
Do you realize that only less than 2% of white Americans own slaves?
But it was a system of white supremacy.
You realize that slavery is thousands of years old?
White people were
Do you know
the slave
who
owners.
was the first race to
didn't
try
realize
to
this was
end
controversial.
slavery?
Okay,
Well, it was controversial.
So it became about slavery.
Extraordinary.
Then she accuses me of bringing it up, which I didn't bring it up. And then I was like, you're strawmanning my argument. I never actually brought this up. You brought it up. And then you're making the same case that white oppression, white is bad, when this whole thing was actually not about slavery.
In that 50-page document that the administration sent you in regard to what they have issues with.
There's maybe one reference to slaves, and that's the Benjamin Franklin.
But the other stuff is like
all the stuff I showed you.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Literally all.
So why does she
trans
think
stuff, like gender identity stuff, gay flag first in the door, eliminating Castro, the white culture card. This is, and that's why I was saying that's not what he's trying to do. And I was trying to show all of these different things that had nothing to do with slavery. But then when I got pulled into that conversation, I was so goddamn sick of hearing how all whitey, like, oh my God, I'm like, you know, not all of us suck.
Jillian,
the vast majority of us don't suck, and they didn't suck then. Yes, we did horrible things. White people did horrible things. We're not the only people to do horrible things, but we did it. At the same time, one would hope that you would take inspiration away from the fact that there were also good guys who were white, fighting against it, making it illegal, banning it in their states, and willing to die for it. So now, go. Hit me where I'm missing this, please.
You keep acting like I'm going to hit you. I'm not going to hit you.
You know
Even
what
if I disagree, I'm not going to hit you.
I want to know,
Yeah.
where am I getting this wrong?
Yeah. So let me talk about what I think is underneath this whole discussion.
Please.
We actually have to go back to almost the origins of American slavery, right? Because basically, if you this is obviously super simplifying it, but what happened was Europeans who were white came to West Africa.
Right.
They saw West Africans. They said, okay, these people are less advanced, and this must be fundamental to what they are. They're just a different class of humans, right? And they're inherently worse in all sorts of ways. That was the European mindset.
Got it.
Right? Now, fast forward hundreds of years later, I think what's happening is actually kind of a reversal, where now there's people who are saying, oh, white people are inherently worse in some way.
That's
but
true.
Instead of it being technologically worse or civilizationally worse, it's morally
worse.
So what happens is anytime we have these discussions, because we're talking about race, we're actually focusing on the wrong thing when we need to be focused on the software, not the hardware. There's nothing about being inherently white or inherently black that makes someone inherently morally superior or inferior. But every time we talk about oppression and hostility and hatred, we racialize it inherently.
Yeah,
And
you're right.
It's race essentialism. So we say, oh, all white people. Well, what about Slavic people? Like Slavic, the word literally comes from slave. So Slavic people, like in Eastern Europe, they were enslaved by the Ottoman Empire.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So
oh my God, I love you so much.
Yeah, so,
Yes.
so the slavery all throughout history, but what happens is in America, we become so hyper fixated on what happened in America, which is important. Of course, we should mention slavery, and you never denied that.
No,
but I think the point that you were trying to make, and is difficult in that environment, is there's a much broader context here.
Yes.
And the evils of slavery are not particular to melanin.
I literally said that. I'm like, you cannot paint only one race with this.
Yes. So in
and not all white people.
Exactly.
Perpetuated this.
Exactly.
Jillian,
so just to finish
hold on.
here. So in the analysis of American history, of course, we need to acknowledge that
100%.
yes, there was a racialized institution of slavery, and in that racialized institution of slavery, white people were placed at the top of the hierarchy, and black people were placed at the bottom. That doesn't mean that current white people identify with that mindset, because it was a culture, it was a software that was adopted, and it happened to be adopted by these people. But all throughout human history, people have been justifying slavery through different methodologies. This is just the American way that we did it. We should be aware of it so we don't repeat it, but we shouldn't be so fixated on that we conflate someone's color of their skin with their ideology.
Can I just want to follow up on one thing he said before we lose the thread. What you just said about the persecution of, Slavic individuals by the Ottoman Empire, that really spoke to me and resonated, because, my parents came here in the late 1970s and early 1980s. They were refugees because of the fact that they were under, Soviet rule in Armenia, so they were oppressed under Soviet rule. But prior to that, the Armenian people suffered a genocide and persecution by the Ottoman Empire. And so the history of my background, my ancestors, was one of persecution, slaughter, just terrible treatment. So when,
this is a
when all
problem.
of that gets erased, and the only thing that matters is literally the color of my skin, and I get lumped in with the Europeans who, brought slavery here to the United States, I just find it deeply offensive. And what it does is it creates this environment of, it breeds more racism, honestly.
Yeah, Jillian, I've been trying to speak for, I just want to say, I was trying to tell you this yesterday. I was infuriated by the way that they treated you. What you essentially did was seek to knock down one of the core tenets of their existence, and that is minority victimhood. The fact that they cannot take any responsibility, and you're taking away one of their categorical imperatives. Their racial grievance, they rely on that in order to not have to look at themselves and take any sort of responsibility for their own problems. That's what I firmly believe.
I want to show. Oh, I'm sorry, Lindy. Were you done with that thought?
Yeah.
You posted a video I can't remember how many days prior.
Thank you.
And it really spoke to me because it's about this vicious cycle. Can we play the end of this video, and then I want to talk about this for a minute?
Yeah.
It turns every problem into white supremacy while defending black degeneracy. And when the pendulum swings back, white people react with hostility. And then they defend white degeneracy. The only way out of this is to stop making morality about the color of people.
So now, we had already invited Kaizen to the show. This video came after that. I remember watching it, and it spoke to me because what is alarming to me about this is twofold. Number one, I have a black daughter. And I'm sorry for all the people that spammed the shit out of my Instagram who said to me, I hope your daughter's ashamed of you. You know what I hope more than anything? Is that my black daughter doesn't fear all white people, including the ones in her family, so fuck you. Now, on top of that, I have a white son who has white friends that are feeling marginalized by this. And my deep alarm is that it will breed a new generation of racists. And he is not, of course, but my point is, this is why young boys are finding their way over to the Andrew Tates of the world. In our house, it's Joe Rogan and Sean Ryan. I'm quite happy with that. But my point is that it's everything that you talk about, and that is my deepest concern, is that when you continue to push this narrative, you are creating a new generation of racists, and you are stoking the fires of racial division.
Yes, and someone needs to have the courage to say, it ends here. Because what has happened here is, look, black people in America were brought here in chains. Everyone understands that, and nothing will ever erase that. That was horrible. It was evil. And what I see now happening is the resentment that naturally comes from that event is just being transferred between racial groups. Right. So I put a picture up of the Carmelo Anthony, Austin Metcalf incident. So for people who are not familiar, you know, there was a white teenager, black teenager. White teenager confronted the black teenager because he was in the wrong place at a sporting event. Black teenager overreacted. He overreacted. He stabbed the white teenager, killed him. And then a lot of people, white people included, but especially black people, started donating to the black teenager, saying he was just defending himself.
Right?
No, more than, I think it was like $750 or yeah, it's like
they
500
bought a huge
something.
house, I remember.
Yeah. So why did people do that? Well, people were justifying it by saying, oh, well, he was provoked and he was trying to defend himself. When it's like, in actuality, if the races had been reversed, you would not be donating to him.
No.
Right?
Yeah,
because you would realize this is just a person
and
taking another person's life.
Justifiably so.
So what happened was they raised all this money, and then a few weeks later, this whole Shiloh Hendricks event happened where a white woman was at a park. A little black kid apparently, allegedly went through her bag trying to steal some stuff, or I don't know what happened. She calls a little kid the N-word. Okay, so should that kid have been in her bag? Absolutely not. Is calling a little kid the N-word a proportionate response to what's going on?
No.
Absolutely not. Now, I'm not equating what Shiloh Hendricks did with what Carmelo did, because one person killed a person, another person called someone a horrible name. But the point is, we keep justifying disproportionate responses. And what happened was a bunch of resentful white people started donating a lot of money to Shiloh Hendricks. Like, why are they doing that? Because they feel like they're being discriminated against. So it's an equal and opposite response. So eventually someone needs to say, look, we need to stop fighting fire with fire. We need to throw water on all of this racial grievance stuff, because it's not benefiting anyone. Because as I said before, hatred hurts both the hater and the hated. At the end of the day, it always comes back. And instead of people justifying disproportionate responses and defensiveness and more hostility, recognize you're only hurting yourself. You're only hurting yourself.
I had one more example. Did you guys hear about the incident in, I believe it was actually Springfield, Ohio, where a kid was killed on a bus due to a car crash from an illegal immigrant, I believe a Haitian immigrant. And then when the father of that child did a press conference, he literally said these words: I wish it was a white person who killed my son.
Wow.
And that just shows the level of like pressure that people feel to virtue signal, that in a time of grieving, of losing your son, you're afraid of being looked at in a bad way from the public.
I just think that the
really
only
sad.
way that this country is going to have a future is if we actually start respecting each other and have a shared identity as Americans. Respect each other because of the fact that we're all Americans and we should look out for each other. But we don't have that shared identity at all. And that's what I think is going to eventually destroy this country entirely, you know?
If I may, do you know, and this is not a quiz to make you look bad, but I'm curious if you know when the last time we had like a presidential approval rating of like 80% or more.
Was it 9/11?
9/11.
Yeah, 9/11.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah,
Why?
that's right. We all came together. We all came together as Americans.
I voted for Obama, but I thought it was a huge
I
progress.
think it was probably pretty high at that point.
I was pretty happy about that.
But why was it Bush? Well, I think now people consider Bush a terrible president.
Yes.
But at the time, we had a shared enemy.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm not saying that we need a shared enemy. Well, I think we should have a shared enemy, and I think it's like cultural degeneration and hatred. That should be our enemy, not a people. But in the absence of a shared mission or shared purpose, we make each other the enemy. And that's what's happening is like, so we talk about like, why are all these like white liberal protesters marching in Black Lives Matter movements and all of this? It's because they lack a purpose that's bigger than race. They lack a purpose that's bigger than race. And in the absence of people, I think a lot of it is honestly just economic. When people feel like they don't have any economic opportunity, they give up and they feel depressed and they're just looking for something to make them feel important and useful in their life. So I think that's underneath a lot of this. But yeah, we need something that causes us to look up rather than down and at each other.
I feel like it's already kind of happening like a little bit. And you're right. The common enemy,
like
a little bit though. Anna and I were
so-
talking about this before we came on. Our common enemy should be the overlords and the deep state that have intentionally created a cultural system where these narratives are sowed, because it creates division. And when we are divided, when we are disenfranchised, when we're sad, we are easier to control. They are the enemy. I'm not going to lie. I've been feeling incredibly black-pilled this year. However, what I have started to notice is that people across the political aisle, people on the left, right, center, anarchists, everyone, they're coming together to agree on some core issues. For example, foreign interests owning our politicians, things of this nature. This is what we should all be rallying behind because these are the ones who are creating the cultural rot in the first place. We need to focus on the actual cause and not slap a freaking Band-Aid on it, guys.
And I think it's like incumbent upon us to have the kinds of conversations that we have on this show, where you have people from different perspectives, maybe even different political ideologies all together, just being able to respect each other even while they disagree, because at the end of the day, we are Americans, right? We love the country, we respect each other, and we have a shared identity in which, you know, basically propels us to want to find solutions to our problems rather than fight each other constantly.
Jillian, I want to go back to your CNN appearance and also just the exhibits that you brought up. I thought it was the ones that you picked out were really salient.
I didn't pick them. This is what was
the ones that you
sent to me.
Picked to discuss, I mean. The ones that you highlighted.
Too long, but they're all similar.
Yes.
I couldn't get through the PDF.
You know what that was reminiscent of? And I am a betting woman, I'm an investor, but like I would bet money that era of rewriting everything in the Smithsonian started with the Obama presidency and extended through the Biden era. This was giving the Obama apology tour when he went around the world and apologized essentially for being American. He went to like foreign heads of state and basically made excuses for foreign policy, made excuses for our way of life.
His foreign policy was garbage. Like he
was apologizing for like centuries of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's kind of why I like Trump's swagger. He's not apologizing on the global stage. I don't think America should apologize to the world. Yes, we have problems here at home, but it stops at the water's edge. We need to present a united front. That is at least my point of view for how foreign policy should be conducted.
I don't know if right now is the time to make that argument.
I'm not talking about Gaza. I'm talking about Obama. This is 20 years ago. When he was president.
But you know, we've had a history of like regime changes, destabilizing countries.
I think I think
it's okay to learn from those mistakes in the past. No,
I'm a very strong gung-ho American. I really think if we're going to fix our foreign policy, those are discussions we should have at home. But when we are going into, for example, a foreign palace or like the French capital, we should not be like bowing our heads in shame. We should be proud of being American. Number two, also this reminds me of the comment that Michelle Obama made. She's like, I can finally be proud of my country. I thought that was a shameful comment. This is, despite our flaws, we are the greatest nation on earth. The fact that we can be here today and talk about this without fear or favor is such a tremendous privilege. If we were somewhere in Asia right now, in China, for instance, we would be arrested right now, right this very moment. We are not allowed to criticize. People there are not allowed to say a word.
I know, and that's a bad
dissent.
thing.
That's a terrible thing.
Right, so
that's what I'm saying. In America, she said, I'm finally proud of being American. I'm saying that's an awful thing to say because it's such a privilege to have the freedom of speech that we have. We should always be proud of our country. And in that pride, we are allowed to make these criticisms.
I agree.
You
know? Can I respectfully disagree with something that was said?
Of course.
Sure. So, Amy, you mentioned before that you think the real enemy is the elites and you know, the systems that these elites control. And I think it's human nature for all of us to want an enemy that's embodied in human form, right? So we've been talking about how we do it to people who look a different color. You know, you go to Africa and it's like you do it to people from a different tribe, even though they're the same color. It's like no matter what the group is, we find a way to subdivide the group. And I actually think hostility toward elites is just part of that. Because it's easy for people to say, oh, well, these people control everything and they're the ones keeping the rest of us down. But I think the scarier realization might be no one's controlling everything. And the enemy is us. The enemy is our own.
I gotta admit,
I think I know who's.
I think it's BlackRock. I think it's
the enemy is our own egos. Because I don't know about you guys, I've been screwed over by people who are poor and middle class too. And I know if I gave them more money, they would screw me over on a higher level. I also know very decent people who are poor and middle class, and if I gave them more money, I know that their character would shine through. So it's easy for us to say, oh, it's rich people, but I actually think, you know, this idea of aristocracy, right? The word aristocracy comes from...
excellence. I study Greek.
Excellence. There you go. Excellence and the best, right? So there used to be sort of this social contract that there were people who were more equipped, more intelligent, more drive, more beauty, more charisma, and that was okay. But the idea was that those people would serve the rest because they're endowed with gifts that the masses are not. So the idea is when you get to the top, you serve the bottom. but that contract,
much is given, much is
required.
Yeah.
But we've lost that.
Yep.
So yes, are there elites who for sure are manipulative and have outside influence that's negative? Sure, but there's also lots of wealthy people who are good people and trying to do good things.
And I am in no way, can I just correct the position really quick?
Sure.
I in no way was trying to completely disenfranchise everyday people from being able to take accountability in whatever form, whether that be individually, within their community, within their family, whatever. But there are two things that are converging together at once. We cannot deny the fact that now, maybe not in America, but in the UK, there are literally hate speech laws in which someone can be thrown in jail for saying something. That was imposed by a government. And there are people who have a specific agenda in creating that. It creates more division. This whole thing that we've been talking about the whole time, their attempts at remedying things make the issues worse, and I think they know that. Like DEI, for example. DEI is a real example here in the United States of America.
So one thing that I'll add to it is I hear what you're saying, and I think, personal responsibility is important. But just, I guess, to like get to your point and kind of flesh it out a little more, there is a problem with crony capitalism in America, right? Like BlackRock. Exactly. And so when it's becoming
rigged.
Look, I'm successful in my career, right? And I'm not poor, I'm pretty affluent, I'm not rich either. I can't afford to buy a home with a yard, right? And so when opportunities like that are ripped away from Americans, I think that also breeds the kind of unrest that we're seeing in the country. And no amount of personal responsibility is going to help. And I would know there's a lot of personal responsibility in my life.
Yeah.
And,
that's not what I'm saying, though. I'm not saying the personal responsibility of just work harder or be more resourceful. I'm saying personal responsibility for the human condition itself, right? Because what I'm saying is I
see what you're saying.
We're going to bring in Jesus, but he said, why do you criticize a speck in someone else's eye when you don't see the log in yours?
Yes.
Right. So we're so easy to say, oh, well, this person's doing this, and when it's like that person is just a reflection of the human condition. And I'm not saying that that person might not have more power to oppress a poor person than the poor person has over them. Obviously, they have more power.
Right.
But what I'm saying is the person is not uniquely evil. We all have a capacity for good and evil.
I agree with that.
And to even the point about slavery, I think that's a lot of what's going on here. It's like we don't have the humility to recognize, wait, these demons and angels exist in all of us.
Absolutely.
Right? So I'm not saying we shouldn't hold elites. That's your point. Yeah. So I'm not going to hit you. I think you're correct, but we don't want to say that because that's the ultimate responsibility. It's almost like a spiritual responsibility. It's like, wow, maybe if, and this we're going to get controversial. It's like imagine if Europeans had been black and Africans had been white. Do we think that those Europeans would have come over and said, oh, we're not going to enslave you because they're morally superior? No, it was an economic system.
There were incidents of that.
It's literally called a mercantile system.
In North Africa, the Barbary slave trade, there were black Africans and Arab Africans who did enslave white people. So there's not something unique here.
Across the board, like race to race.
All over the world.
And there's imperialism through every ethnicity.
Yeah.
The Asians.
Yes.
I mean, have you heard of the century of humiliation? That happened in
Actually,
China.
I have not.
Yes, the War of Opium, the Opium War.
I don't know anything about
So Great Britain essentially invaded China. Did you hear about this? Like 150 years ago.
Thank you so much for watching Her Take. If you like the show, can you help us out by subscribing to the channel, clicking the notification button, sharing, commenting, joining the conversation? It helps us out a ton with the algorithm. We appreciate you.